Hi, everyone, and welcome to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. This is Gianni DePoce, and it is great, as always, to be with you all. We had another volatile week in many equity markets. We had a pretty decent rally to start off, but then a day after the lunar eclipse and a day before the Mars-Neptune conjunction, we saw stocks make another high and reverse back lower, and they're making new lows again. So let's go ahead and look at some charts here. We'll start off with the Dow Jones. So here was the high that I talked about, formed on May 17th. The eclipse was the day before on May 16th, and the Mars-Neptune conjunction was the day after on May 18th. So this creates another lower high, which serves to reinforce the existing downtrend. And now that we are making new lows, we see that bearish forces are still very much in control of this market. If we compare this to the NASDAQ, we see that the NASDAQ is still leading the market lower. This fits in with our Saturn in Aquarius outlook that whatever sign Saturn is transiting tends to depress prices in that area. And we know that Aquarius rules tech. So it's looking pretty nasty for stocks right now. We have a lot of calls for recessions, economic depressions. I've even seen some calls for, and that could really even exacerbate until Mars goes into Aries. And I think once we get that conjunction between Mars and Jupiter, we could start to see some more initiative being taken to combat what appears to be a slowing economy. And especially, it could even lead to further inflationary pressures ramping up with the geopolitical situation still very unstable right now. The upcoming conjunction between Mars and Jupiter on May 29th could reignite a new wave of tensions on that front, which actually leads me to my next chart, that being crude oil. We had a reversal from the high. We made a high on the 17th, and that was a day before the Mars-Neptune conjunction. Obviously, the co-rulers of crude oil are Jupiter and Neptune. So that high formed a day before that planetary aspect that rules crude oil. But then we found a nice floor by the end of the week. We actually just started Gemini season. We're about to start Gemini season. The sun's going into Gemini here on May 20th. But we found a nice floor on the day that the sun formed a trine with Pluto on the 19th. And crude oil managed to basically lock in a week that was unchanged. I want to take a look at Bitcoin as well. Bitcoin continues to consolidate near the lows, meaning that instead of rallying sharply off of that new multi-month low that formed earlier this month, it's essentially trading sideways. And that type of price action is generally bearish. So if you want to know exactly what we're doing in this cryptocurrency space, highly encourage you to check out our crypto reports. We have daily updates and weekly updates as well for both Bitcoin and Ethereum. But the big question is, are we going through that bust period of the Uranus transit through Taurus right now? Still a little too early to tell, but it's definitely something we will continue to monitor going forward. Now, another key reversal that may have happened recently is in the 10-year yield for the Treasury. So the 10-year Treasury yield, and recall that if interest rates go down, bond prices go up. If interest rates go up, bond prices go down. So we're looking at the interest rate here. And we saw a high form earlier this month, and they've continued to decline. And this is not uncommon to see when equity volatility is higher than usual. But we also know that bonds do not like high inflation environments, meaning that as inflation goes up, interest rates tend to go up as well. So that explains this uptrend here. We know that inflation has been going higher, and it's no surprise to see interest rates follow it. And we talked earlier in this video how the conjunction between Mars and Jupiter could reignite some inflationary pressures. Perhaps it leads to another breakout in crude oil, and that would be a major headwind for bonds, a major tailwind for interest rates. But right now we're seeing a corrected decline, and this is basically a flight to safety trade. And interest rates are a very important market. Not only are they the foundation of our economic system, we have a debt-based fiat monetary system, but they're also very important for the housing market. So one ETF that I like to use to monitor housing is the Spyder S&P Home Builders ETF, and the ticker symbol is XHB. And you can see that home building stocks, or the home building ETF, the sector, peaked in December of 2021. And since then, we've been trending lower as interest rates rise. That's hurting buyer affordability for homes, reducing demand, and this could be part of the essentially what could be the final passage, what will be the final passage of the Saturn-Uranus square coming up this fall. It's not going to register on the ephemeris because it's not an exact aspect, but it is going to be within a relatively tight orb. So this is something that suggests that the housing situation is evolving in a manner that it's not all rosy like it was a couple years back. But the reason I talked about interest rates before this is that if interest rates start to come down, we could see a renewed impetus on behalf of buyers. If mortgage rates come down, maybe people will be more aggressive, and that could help. Well, actually, that would be further inflationary pressure. So that kind of lines up with the Mars-Jupiter conjunction that I'm eyeing toward the end of the month. Now, keep in mind, we still are in a Mercury retrograde period, and we're right around the midpoints of this retrograde time band. And a lot of times we see reversals. We saw that earlier in this week in many markets. Even this home building ETF, started off the week pretty well, but then was slammed back lower. That's a classical Mercury retrograde move. False breakouts, false breakdowns, a lot of uncertainty in the market. And so Mercury will go direct on June 3rd. So don't be surprised if the market choppiness across all sectors persists until then. And, don't trust everything that you see or hear as it pertains to financial markets until that time. So that takes care of everything that I wanted to review with you this week. Thanks again for watching. Would strongly encourage you to sign up for our free weekly column that Ray writes. It is a great complement to this video. And we also have a variety of other reports. We came out with our MMA cycles report just last week, updated our outlook for equity markets, bond markets, grain markets, precious metals. Definitely check that out. And then our webinar that we had a couple weeks ago are still, the comments in those in that presentation are still very much pertinent. So check us out, www.mmacycles.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.